besides buses you've never done before, it just doesn't.
It's fun, like, right, yeah, there's some pain, some, you know, you gotta go through some, and go through it to get to that, the good part.
Has this been helpful to you personally?
Yes, tremendously, yeah. It's brought out some abilities in me that I doubt fears on. So, you know, and with more time and practice, I'm sure it'll, I'm excited.
But personally for you, other than GFTs, has this been helpful?
Yeah, it's allowed me to touch parts of me that I, you know, hadn't thought of before, feelings, emotions. It's been helpful. It's on a deeper level.
Looking forward to it.
Am I going to sing? I had a plan to sing. I'll lip sync. Yeah. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. And glad to be in God's house with everybody. It's a very fruitful day for all of us here. As you can see, I'm going to discuss about relationships. It's been on my heart for a long time, for many years, because of an event in my life a long time ago. Some of you know the story through Cell, through the years of sharing. I've shared this, and so I thought I'd share it so we're all on the same page, and which is good when we're all in unity. I want to go back to when I was about 8 years old. We lived in Apple Creek on South Carr Road. Some of you probably know where that's at. Right before you get to Wayne Delta Flesh and Legs, you take a right. Head a few miles out. Our house sat a little ways off the road. You can still see from the road. And there was a gravel driveway that led up to the house. And just right, a little before the house was it circled in front of the house. And there was an island of grass. It was, this was in April of 1970. So my sister, Chris, she's 2 years younger than I am. We were outside playing, and this was on a Saturday, and my dad was cutting a tree down and got caught in electric lines, and he ended up touching the line. And my sister and I were outside playing, we saw it happen. I saw black smoke rise from his back and fall to the ground. And for me, that's the last memory I have. I estimate that I missed probably about 5 years of my life, memories of going places, doing things. I have no recollection of where I went. I call it a walking coma. I know you, when you're in a coma, you can't move or remember things, but for me, I was going through the motions of life, but not remembering what I was doing or anything. And then one day, it was like a dimmer switch. You know how a home has those dimmer switches that you can adjust to make the light brighter? Well, that was what happened for me. Was all of a sudden back in reality. The light switch got turned up on me. And the very first thought I had was what I'd seen that day. And I've lived with that every day. My dad died 3 days after his 48th birthday. He turned 48 on Wednesday, died that Saturday. So every year at my birthday, when I make 4 days past my birthday, that's another year I will go on with him. Right now, this year will be, when I pass my birthday, it'll be 7 years. So it's hard to accept. It's not easy. And you can imagine too that I have a fear of electricity. I do. One time we were buying a home, and because it was an older home, the outlets needed replaced. It didn't have that third little prong in there, the safety one. And I had a friend coming. He knew electric, but he was working all it live, and my nerves were on edge because I just can't see how anybody wants to take that risk. It scared me. But he felt comfortable, but I had the worst visions, because I still want to replace seeing that happen again. So, and I know each of us, we all have personal traumatic experience we've gone through. We wouldn't want anybody to experience it. And I respect where you're at with that, but at the same time, I say I wish this on nobody else either. It's hard to watch somebody die, but, you know, a longer death, but to see it instantly like that and then lose all memory of it. And I guess through the trying to relate to him as a man, you know, that I didn't get a chance to. My mom had shared with me one time that he never drank coffee, didn't like it. So I don't drink coffee. And I don't think I realized that I was doing that as a bonding effort until probably about maybe 5+ years ago. It just hit me one day, oh, why am I not drinking coffee? It's because of, you know, you find ways to bond with somebody that you never really knew. And that, for me, is I've had probably 2 cups of cappuccino, and that's been, you know, if you want to call it a coffee drink, I don't know. But I just have not wild a coffee or cappuccino drinks then. So, and even at work, at one time I was giving our copier service guy a cup of coffee, and pots were getting empty. So I had asked somebody how to make it. You know, I didn't know what buttons to push. So you know, I just don't make it. So you know, don't drink it, don't make it. So here are some pictures of my dad. And me, the upper corner, my sister. And some of those, a couple of those there, I actually got from my aunt. She had them, and it was a real thrill to see them, but I honestly don't remember any of them. The lower left one is me, the seal with my dad, and the center one's the Navy picture. He was actually in World War II. He served on the Missouri. He was there when they signed the treaty in World War II. And from what the veterans had said to us, that there was only 6 men from Ohio. My dad was one of those 6 on that ship. So it's a privilege. So I'm hoping someday to be able to go to Hawaii and stand on the deck and be able to find another way to bond with me. I think that would be really a major thrill. His death did get the newspaper. It was on the front page. Unfortunately, it's not the way you want to see your parents, see a parent come in the paper. It was, I didn't know about this till a few years back. Somebody told me it was an article right in the paper, and so I went to the library and looked it up, and you know, it was at the bottom section, the center of those 3 columns. So, as I said earlier, I said I couldn't remember anything, but there was one thing that was said to me that my grandmother shared with me. Her grandmother had said, and I don't know why it stuck out, but she said that I was the man of the house. And all of a sudden that took on a different meaning. And I really took it literally into my heart. And it was hard to be, I didn't feel like I could be a child anymore. I got thrust into adulthood instantly. I know her intentions were good. I know that wasn't the reason. But I know she cared. But to say that to an 8-year-old is not something that they can do. And I know there are plenty of children out there who can do a lot. You know, at 8, 10, 12 years old, you hear about these piano recitals, and they go to town, you know. They got a gift and talent, but even I don't think that child could maintain a home to the level of responsibility as an adult to maintain and run a home. So, you know, I guess for me, I still consider myself at times a little child because I missed out on the childhood. I enjoy my cartoons, you know. I enjoy having fun, playing jokes, you know, but I go back in time, and I try to go back when I can. How did that affect me? Like I said, it just did a lot to me, and it changed my perspective in life. So that's why, just through my experience with that situation, I just implore with you, with your relationship with any children, whether they're your own, regardless of your own or neighbors, any young child, you know, don't place on them anything that exceeds their capacity mentally, emotionally, or physically, because you're setting them up for failure, and you don't want to do that. So when you're interacting with them, get to know who they are and where they're at, not where you want them to be at. And you want to encourage them. Don't place anything higher on them. I know, like Irene with Gabe, you know where he's at. You're going to do and give him tasks that you know he can accomplish, and then celebrate those victories.
So then it keeps building the momentum up in him, and he understands. So, I know you're not going to place anything more on him than what's necessary. And, in our system, it says that, child turns as an adult at age 18. And let's say that your child would live to be 100. That's 82 years as an adult, 18 as a child. There's a short window of childhood, a very long window of being an adult. So, the way that works, so the best way to remember is that the child only gets one childhood. And if you start children off, Proverbs 22:6 says, if you start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. So they will have a lot to deal with, issues to deal with as an adult, but how you teach them as a child will greatly impact how they respond to those issues. And in parenting, there's no do-overs. You just can't rewind, erase, and start again.
Right.
So, and when I think about this, I think about my mother. What I share about her, I love and respect her. I'm not putting her down in respect and understand, the situation she went through. But she was very strong-willed. And because of that, I've struggled with my relationships. 2 failed marriages, unfortunately. And I was basically taught how to cope and adjust, myself towards her, and it was a struggle. I know it affected our relationship. My father said it did overall, and it got to a point where in my first marriage, my mother and my ex-wife didn't like each other, so that put me in the middle. I kind of, as a pendulum swinging back and forth, trying to keep her happy, one side happy, and then the other side happy. So, and at one point, there was even a point there for a while, and I don't recall how long, but I didn't talk to my mother for a while. And I regret that. I really, truly do. I wish I hadn't done that, but it did. But I think, too, what it come down to was in her thinking, she was the adult, had the authority. I was a child, I had to listen. And I'm sure I've been guilty of that with my children, too. I look back, and I'm sure I did that as well. And what we need to be is mentors, not dictators, to our children in our relationship with them. So as your children mature, your relationship should mature with them as well.
It's good.
So, and because as you mature with them, and when they get older, they'll be able to approach you and talk to you about things that they would be comfortable. Most time, kids go to other sources that may not be reliable, and then it causes more problems. So the more you can be their mentor, then the more they'll open up to you. Got a few statistics here on fatherless homes. There was a lot out there when I did a search. I just kind of pulled these off at random. 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes, 90% of all homeless and runaway children from fatherless homes, 85% of children who show behavior disorders, 71% of pregnant teenagers from fatherless homes, and 71% of high school dropouts. That's more than 20 million children living in a home without a physical father. That's probably could be from death, it could be also maybe in jail. Also, there was a father absent from the relationship, just decided they want a child and hit the road. So that leaves the mother fending for the child. But I'm grateful to God that I'm not part of these statistics in my life. His love has embraced me and guided me in my steps and paths, give me the right relationships to help make a difference.
Move the mic closer to the
I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm not part of that crowd in any respect or even any other statistics that I came across. And I'm just grateful. It's been a great life. I owe it all to God because I couldn't have done it in my own strength. There's just no way. In relationships, it's God's strength doing it. Here are a few pictures of my mother. The left one's their engagement picture back in 1960. They were married just there was over 15 and a half years age difference between them. So, yeah. And my dad was a fireman with the city of Worcester, and so for a little while. And she remained a widow for over 38 years. She told me that she didn't feel another man could replace him. And so she stayed committed to that. And so they've been back together now for almost 8 years. So, but like I said, she never dealt with the pain. She was very good about putting up a front and pretending everything was fine. And so when I tried to speak to her about things, I had to adjust how I spoke, in the tone, words, because she made me feel guilty. If it didn't agree with the way she felt, I could be made to feel guilty for that. So, and that's a part of my, issues of women, my relationships, unfortunately. When I have spoken my views, which I try to be assertive but not rude, I've been quickly put in my place. And that hinders my growth and then hinders my relationships as well. So let's see what the Bible has to say about relationships. We're going to Ephesians chapter 4. I picked out a few verses that kind of stood out for me. Ephesians 4, verse 2. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. So we're to speak the truth. And with my mother, it was hard to be truthful because of who she was and her attitude and not dealing with this issue. And like I said, if I tried, I had to adjust. And have you ever been in a relationship where your hands were tied and you couldn't say, to be honest, you know the other person, how they would react and respond to that? It hinders the relationship. You know you can do more, give more, but you adapt and adjust the way they want it. And it's sad. It does hurt. So then in verse 3 it says, make every effort to keep unity of the Spirit through bond and peace. So every effort, that means a lot of strength. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of strength, without a doubt. And in verse 15 it says, instead, which is an option, you speak the truth in love. We will grow to become in every respect the mature body of Him who is the head, that is Christ. And when I see that truth in love, as I was going through this, and even just the other day, if there was a balance there. It's hard to find that balance of truth and love. And to me, when I think of that, I think of like an engine. And this is a strange analogy of it, but say a car engine. In order for it to run properly, it has to have the right balance of gas and the right balance of air mixture to get in that chamber to make it work. So that's kind of, if you want to look at truth and love as being gas and air, the right balance, the right ratio of mixture, so it works properly and gets things moving, working the way it should. And I think a lot of us would learn to, we need to speak the truth, definitely. And if you look there in verse 25, it says, speak, therefore each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully. So again, it's saying twice in that same chapter, speaking truthfully. So it emphasizes the truth factor in it. To your neighbors, for we are all members of one body. And one body means in unity. So that's very, very important. Verse 26, then, jumping there, says, in your anger, do not sin. It says that, it says that we can get angry, but not to sin. So don't end your day in bitterness. Don't let it get to your heart. It's kind of like a bank account. When you invest money, it grows larger. Don't invest your anger and let it get larger. Just decide to throw it away. You're going to cancel that debt. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. So don't let the day end like that. It's very important. Verse 27, do not give the devil a foothold. So I've seen that do not give, meaning you want to have resistance. You want to make a stand, show resistance and make a stand for that against Satan. And a foothold is, I see that kind of as a war. When you're at war with somebody, there's a good side and a bad side, and one's trying to overtake the other, and you don't want the bad side, the bad guys, to get into your territory. And so you want to make sure to, don't give up, keep persisting in those relationships. And verse 28, anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. So stealing would not necessarily mean, it could mean, taking something physical, but in our relationships, we do steal from people their joy, their happiness, and we also, when there's a task to be performed, we can steal from that. And when to make the family stay in unity, you can steal. When you have an assignment to finish, to accomplish, to do, then it creates extra stress and then tension within that family, within the dynamics and the relationship of it. So when asked to do something, it's just best to apply the effort, and it creates a bond and unity. And verse 29, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Unwholesome talk, we want to make sure it's edifying and uplifting, without a doubt. People already have enough negative talk in relationships. They're put down enough, and even with their own thoughts.
That's right.
They struggle with the inner thoughts of what they believe, and it's not needed. So, and then the other thing is according to their needs. So it's according to their needs, not your needs. Sometimes we speak because we think it's needed, but it's not. And we want to put in our own views. So, and I'm a firm believer that defective thinking equals defective words. And then in verse 31, get rid of all bitterness, rage and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Those are all other forms of anger. Bitterness is, anger, root bitterness. Rage is physical. Brawling is physical. Slander is the written word. Or spoken word, spoken word. And then malice, I looked up malice and I was curious about the definition just to see. It says a desire to inflict injury, harm, or suffering on another. And that just stunned me. I'm thinking, who has that desire to inflict harm? I mean, you hear about these stories where this husband or wife plots to kill the other, and they're talking to some undercover cop. I can't believe that their marriage, when it's sunk to that point, that desire to see them get rid of their spouse. I can't fathom that. It just doesn't make sense to me. And then in verse 32, to be kind and compassionate, that's definitely not kind and compassionate. To one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ forgave us. I mean, that level of forgiveness is needed in relationships. If God can give us that in our relationship with Him, how much more can we give that in our relationship with other people? We have to deal with the people every day, but God, He's at a distance, but that doesn't mean, He still forgives us regardless of the distance in our human relationships.
There's two types of basic relationships. There's one-way relationships, and there's two-way relationships. Now, I think in one-way relationships that are, say, Chris, I'll just love you no matter what, and it doesn't really matter what you do. That's a one-way relationship. A one-way relationship is that I will just show grace and love and patience, and I have no expectation on your part. That's a one-way relationship. A two-way relationship, let's go back. The two-way relationship, yeah, keep going. Yeah, keep going. A two-way relationship, this says bearing with one another. That's sort of like, it's not just me bearing with you. The two-way relationship is that when we both come together and we both are humble and we both are gentle and we both are patient and we both give an effort and we both speak the truth and we do it in love both together. And I think the frustration you had, as I was just hearing here, that you had with your mother, she wanted a one-way relationship with you.
Unfortunately.
It was just, you be gentle and humble and listen and go along. And as long as you did that, everything was fine, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And that was a one-way relationship. But you wanted a two-way
I did
relationship.
it, yeah.
And that was the frustration.
Big time.
I think the hardest relationships that we have in life are the two-way relationships. Why? Because both people have to be at the same spot that they really want.
Right.
That they both are going to be. It doesn't say just, you notice up here, these aren't suggestions. This is written to the church at Ephesus. It'd be a nice idea if you guys were just humble. It'd be a good idea if both of you be gentle. If everyone in the church would just bear one upon another, wouldn't that just be nice if we all just do that? No, it says this is the way we are since we're under Jesus.
Right. Right.
But let's just think, what if we were that? What if we would strip it away? And it doesn't say just be completely humble. What if we would really strip it away and get to the real persons? And get vulnerable, because getting humble is a vulnerable spot. I think that's where Jesus says, by this all men will know that you're my disciples, because of that awesome love that you have for one another. So I think the struggle that you had in your marriages is that it wasn't mutual.
Right.
I mean, it just continued on from your mom to these other relationships. Is that right?
Oh, definitely.
I'm just trying to, because you had like two parts. You had here's your mom and dad, and then here's the word. I'm trying to put the two together.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I was reading student journals this weekend, and I had asked them to write about their strengths and weaknesses because we're studying Odysseus. And the one young man wrote that his pride hurts his relationships with people. Like he raced his brother, instead of saying good race, he went bragging around that he was the best and all of this, and he said it put a wedge in his relationship with everybody. So I wrote on his journal, I said, the court's model is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But God asks us to speak the truth in love. And there's a ditch on either side, and I call the one ruthless truth, and the other sloppy agape. So, and I said, I think that's one of the hardest things that God ever asks us to do, is to speak the truth in
Yeah,
love.
that is. Agreed. Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
was good. This is good.
So, I want to, I'm glad we're back at this slide, because I had a little more thought that, I mentioned here about an engine, okay? I'm going to go back to that. You're probably thinking I've been spending too much time in somebody's garage with the engine running, the doors are down. But I've not been, inhaling extra fumes here. But if you think about an engine, the components, it's got a cylinder, spark plug, the valves, the way it works. And I think each one of these represents a cylinder in an engine of our relationships. Being humble, gentle, patient, bearing with one another, keeping unity there, peace, truth and love. Those are all good cylinders in the
forgiving one another. And, I'm thinking, in our relationships, is there a cylinder might not be working right? Maybe say the spark plug isn't firing, the timing's off. Say in the compassionate cylinder, ask God to put new spark in your cylinder for that one, Or what about with forgiving? Let's say the exhaust valve, when in an engine, it comes down, the piston pushes out the burnt fuel, out the tailpipe. And so let's just say your exhaust valve isn't opening the way it should. You're getting a lot of buildup in there of junk. So, and then you can't be compassionate. Well, just ask God for a new valve job on that cylinder.
There you go.
He's the mechanic in our relationships.
Right.
Let's let him fix them. We can't do it in our own strength. Let's turn that engine over to him, and so let him be the mechanic. So what's this all boil down to? Do for others what you want them to do for you. This is the teaching of the law of Moses in a nutshell. Plain and simple English, nothing different. Living Bible. It's not rocket science. And of course, it doesn't say up there, when they do unto me, I will do unto them. It's putting the other person first in a relationship. And we all need to deal with the good, the bad, and the ugly relationships, because it's going to happen. All three of those elements are going to happen at some point or another. And if you think back, we're all familiar with the America's Funniest videos, how they have put the camera out and they play pranks, and just to see people's reactions. So I got thinking about this, and including myself, what if we didn't know the camera was out there, and we were being taped in our home, our social life, our restaurant, when we seen and heard how we sounded, how would we react to that and respond? Would it change you? I've been in places, stores and restaurants, and